This is probably inappropriate to start off with the peace greeting. Um, Breet Fairley is a case about which I just found out. Uh, Shout out to the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson of the New Greater Zion Valley, Precious Lamb. Oh Lord, hold my mule while I shout. Golden Monument, Mountain of Hope, Faith Tabernacle, Holy Bright, Morning Star, Evangelistic, Apostolic, Temple of We Don't Take No Misandry Off These Hoes Incorporated. And also shout out to Chissa Jet for this. Let me also give shouts out to everybody that came through on the Cash App recently. I've asked you guys before to do about one or two a piece, make that easier on everybody, me and you, as opposed to any single people sending in a whole lot. Muhammad came through generously. And to be honest with you, within the last... Muhammad came through generously. So within the last 9 months, Muhammad, the Chosen One, and C. Peterson have been the second most generous. David Smith still holds the record for being the most generous. But they're carrying a lot of other folks' weight. And S. Jock holds the record for being, he's the second most generous actually because of his consistency. But he already knows that. But the second most generous in terms of single donations would be the names that I mentioned beforehand. And I do ask that nobody make anything difficult on themselves. I don't want that. Malika Mebane is the second most consistent. And I really appreciate you all's support. I also want to thank you all for getting me above the 4,900 subscriber mark. I want to thank Anubis for sharing my vids, like he shared the one that they uploaded from a few hours ago. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Look, gentlemen, Breet Fairley laid down with Maria under conditions that involved him not being held responsible for the child, and she went back on her word. He was able to sue after she went ahead and tracked him down and contacted his mom and grandma. And I understand them wanting to be a part of the life of their relative. That does make sense. I don't blame the mom and grandma. What I want you guys to understand from this is that, number one, fornication is simply not going to pan out into something good. It just doesn't. Now, there are people who fornicate, men and women alike, and they keep it on the low. They keep it private. Nobody knows they do it. And they repent for it, and they may simply not be punished, but more than likely, they're still going to go through some kind of punishment to de-incentivize them from doing it again. Men or women. That's very likely what's going to happen. Even if God forgives you, he can give you a consequence more so to disincentivize than to just merely punish and avenge. He knows what we need better than we do. He knows our subconscious minds when we don't, because the word subconscious means we don't know it, but we believe it. Therefore, I'm going to point out to you, my knuckleheaded brethren, that fornication is not something that's going to pan out into something good. It does not have rewards. Now, women will turn around and punish chastity. That is true. We already know women don't like chastity in men. I still tell you to practice male chastity, because there are at least traditional parts of the world in which women don't blame you for that. But I don't want you gentlemen thinking that fornication has rewards to it. When you see somebody fornicate, then later he gets married to a woman that most other men would never be able to even impress, and it's because he's had all this experience with other women, know that that woman still is flawed. Know also that underneath the surface of what you can see, there is something that man is suffering. And the woman too, if that's her preference. Women who only want men would experience wind up suffering something in the end. And many women want that. A lot of very educated, very attractive, very difficult, very hard to get women still want men with experience. And the problem is that they suffer when they get that too. I got a cousin I told you all about, prolific fornicator, prolific, hell of a womanizer. It was to the point my mom wanted me to take pointers from him. And I told her, well, I would like to know what he knows about women. I'm not trying to sit up here and just pick up a bunch of, I'm not trying to pick up a high body count, but he does know certain things about them. And I would like to know what they are, because then I could use that to make a wife happy and responsible. And I said this before I was Muslim. Now, I simply saw that as a clean way to go. And that's the example I had with my own parents. They're still married and in love. So I wanted to go that route. It's the best route. If you don't have kids, you don't regret going that route. If God won't let you have kids, you still don't regret going that route. Imagine if you have them. That's how you want them to come up. My parents had one of the last few marriages that people could envy. My parents. And I knew that at a young age. And I wanted to be able to continue this for my own kids. And unfortunately, I was never allowed. Never. And that's because where I lived and where my kids were born, that was not an option. So you may be punished by women for your chastity, but you will not be rewarded by God for your fornication. You will not be. And it's not even always that he just avenges because he's some stubborn old goat with a bad temper. That's not true. But it can be that he would simply withdraw protection from you that he would have otherwise given to you when the consequences of your fornication come sniffing around. So Breet Fairley is not a father, but he was going to be held responsible as though he was a dad. This woman, and he answered an ad to merely inseminate the woman. He answered an ad for that. And now I know why that man said something. Why not that man, but there's this other man who he just nasty in terms of his morality. And he said, this is not something that everybody can do, but I'll do it and I'll tell you how to get over. And now I know why that man said it, because in all honesty, some of you know who this guy is. I don't know his name, but he was on, he had some videos up talking about how you just get over on these women, how you just get a whole lot of box and get a whole lot of trim, but it's deceptive. He was talking about using those ads to just get a lot of trim. And here's the funny part. And you elect to do it in the old fashioned way. You ain't nutting in a cup. You ain't doing none of that. You are going up in them and busting in them raw. And now I know why it is that he said to do that, because all they do is run game. I told you that if I was not Muslim, there's a trick I would tell you that would get you over. But when the women realize that that's all that's out there, and they have no other option because everybody knows this game and that's all it is, then the women would lose their mother cuss word minds. And now I'm going to go ahead and tell you, because of what happened to Breet Fairley, and not only what happened to him, but the fact that it's happening to other men. I'm going to tell you what it is. If you're not Muslim, you can get over. If you are Muslim, your way is different to get over. If you're Muslim, your way to get over is to develop yourself, go into traditional areas that still exist, tell those men about the feminism that's coming down the pike, because it's already happening even here in Saudi. You tell those men, you marry someone from there, you treat her well as long as she treats you well. You be a responsible husband. You don't let her act like a child. You treat her like an adult. You tell her to act like an adult. You bounce if she doesn't. You stay if she does. You be a good husband. But you also let the men there know what the hell is coming down the pike. And you ain't got to tell all your business, but you simply do say, listen, I married a good wife, so I want to be a good husband to her. And there are men out there that are like that. But I want you gentlemen to know that exactly the kind of wife that this lady is here that I married. You can start with your in-laws. You could say to them, listen, I want you guys to understand your sister, your daughter is excellent to me. Yeah, I love her. She's great. I want you guys to know that the influences coming through the phone and the TV are designed to tell every single woman in this country to be the exact opposite of her and to do everything that you would be ashamed of if you found out she did. I want you guys to know this, and I want you guys to understand that there are ways to fight this, and I'm going to tell you what they are. And that's what you do. When you leave, when you do go, it is not only important that you go and you find someone responsible and that you marry her in a chaste manner. It is also important that you tell these men, and this is where we have slipped up. You're not having conversations with your Thai buddies. You're not having conversations with your buddies in Cambodia. You're not having conversations with your buddies in Colombia, although they probably have some idea. You're not having conversations with your buddies in Brazil, and you'd be shocked because y'all could trade notes. They'll tell you, you'll tell them, y'all will learn something. You're not having conversations with your buddies in South Africa who could also do the same thing as the guys in Brazil. You're going there, but you're not having conversations with the men. That part is more important than getting any trim, especially if the way you're getting trim is fornication. Now, if you ain't Muslim and you're not going to accept it, and you don't particularly have religious notions of chastity, then you get the snip and you start answering those ads and you dig them out. And then 2 weeks later, they say, we didn't conceive, try again. And then, you do so until they realize you're not going to conceive. And they move on to the next, as if you ain't Muslim. Go on ahead. That's how you wage this war. That's how you win it. And understand that you are still going to be, because I told you fornication will never be rewarded and it will be punished unless you repent. It's still going to be a punishment. These chicks are going to turn around and start pressuring lawmakers and law enforcement to lock your butts up for deception, because they believe that any heterosexual satisfaction you get should be punished. They already think that. So if you do conceive, they're going to stick you with the child support, even if they said you weren't, and they got a signed agreement that you won't. But if you don't conceive, then they're going to come along and stick you with deception. They don't fib a guck. They're going to get you one way or another. They're going to make sure you pay for sex dearly. Fornicate or marriage. Really, if it's marriage, it's probably the dad that's going to try to make sure that you pay. Maybe the woman, if she's materialistic. But you are going to have to pay even more if it is going to be fornication. Matter of fact, in some places, it is more expensive to marry than it is to fornicate. And I mean expensive in terms of finances and non-finances. It's just expensive. It's just difficult. And there are cases where these men do so. And I ask God to forgive them, and not the women per se. Yeah, that's a double standard, because the women are the ones in control of it. But you have to learn this from Breet Fairley. He had an agreement. She still committed paternity fraud. She likely knew who the huck the dad was. The dad's married to somebody else, which is why she wanted that man in the first mother cuss word place. And then she wants Breet Fairley to pay. And Breet Fairley finds out he ain't even the dad. But then they don't make her pay him back, which they almost never do. And that's the damn problem. And then they don't take his name off the birth certificate, we think. And he's under a gag order, and she's under a gag order. She breaks it, stays free. He then explains what she lied about, and then he goes to jail. Nigga. That's not God necessarily punishing him and not her for the fornication. That is God taking his hand off of him and her, but the system's going to go after him because he's a man that found heterosexual satisfaction in between the thighs and up in the pussy of a woman. Sex is important to healthy adults, men and women alike. But when men find it, everyone feels like he found something that's just too good and he's got to pay for it. He's got to pay dearly. Because the system, and that's why these ladies feel so comfortable expressing this kind of hatred, hates you. The women hate you. They make up the majority of the voters. Their interests are against yours. Legislators know this, and they will listen. They will listen to what these ladies want, and they will make sure that you are the one that has to pay dearly because you're a guy and you managed to find something that's important to the health of any adult, really, that's healthy. And that's what that's about for them. You're being penalized for your very nature. And even when your nature does not incline you towards a particular woman, then you're penalized for that because they want whatever you don't want. You guys keep missing the point that it is hatred. And Manosphere Hall of Fame is going to say to me, I know in the comments, he's going to come in, he's going to say, it's not really women's fault. I mean, they're not innocent, but it's the fault of men. You keep saying that. I know that. We don't agree on necessarily what the extent is, but I've said that. I just said that you got male legislators that are sitting up here going along with this because many of their constituents are women. The women themselves are voting for men to legislate for them for the most part, along with the men. But then the men are voting for laws that favor women and disfavor men, and judges are sitting up here and applying them as such. You take the way the law is written, the law doesn't even have to be written in a sexist manner. It just favors women based on nature. In India, it's out even worse. In India, the laws disfavor the men by definition. The man must pay alimony once he's married and they divorce, even if it's just very short. There's not even a time frame that he has to stay with her for her to qualify for some sort of alimony. Now, what does she do? Now she's been married, she's divorced, she's free, but she's getting this income. Now that man has to subsidize her just fornicating with the men she wants to fornicate with. So, you really want to just run through a bunch of divorcees without marrying them? Go to India and be a gym bro. Get your body game up. Join the gym there, get your body game up, and a woman will be flirting with you. The divorcees, they're getting money from their ex-husbands. As long as she and the ex-husband are both alive, they getting money. So now she's just looking for somebody to blow her back out. And she probably wants some romance too, but when it comes to that legal commitment, she don't want that because that means that the income she gets from the ex-husband ain't gonna come through no more. The only way she can be alive and not get it anymore is if he dies or she remarries. And the funny thing is, if you make more money than the ex-husband, she's probably going to say, you know what? I want a commitment. I want to marry. You want this pussy, but you don't want to commit. You know how they'll talk the same way. Because the chicks that'll do this type of stuff already watch TikTok. So you guys got to keep in mind and understand, man. When I tell you about chastity and I tell you that you should do it for both spiritual and practical reasons, both of them, there is a reason for it. The practical reasons are that the world is waiting to punish you. The West is waiting to punish you if you have sex in a marriage. If you consummate a marriage with your wife, they're waiting to do that. That's the difference between the West and the rest of the world. The rest of the world is waiting to punish you only if you are caught fornicating, and you may not be caught. And most of them ain't waiting to punish you. They're not waiting to catch you, then punish you. They're just ready to punish you if they catch you. Many other traditional places are more like that. Here, people aren't interested in catching you fornicating, but if you do get caught fornicating, they're going to punish you here. It's hard to get caught, but if you get caught, guess what? Wear these handcuffs. These folks ain't playing. Same in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, they will make you marry. And then when they make you marry, the lady that's caught in this is going to be like, well, let's go. And then she's going to start saying, go get these sweets for the marriage and for the marriage ceremony and go get this and that and the other. And you're like, whoa, hold on. You're just stacking on the price like I just got all this money. Oh, you ain't got it? I know because I saw a documentary on it. That's Afghanistan. They're not playing with you, man. They are not playing with anybody. When it comes down to that, you will pay. And that's one of the reasons I tell you, if you are stuck in one of these places that's unfriendly, do a marriage according to your faith tradition and don't do it in front of the government. If you're stuck in one of those places, like you're stuck in the state you can't leave, go ahead and do a church marriage and tell her you're not bringing the state into it. For a reason, they don't bring you into their business. And you can straight up say, the reason I can afford to I can either take care of you or I can bring the state into our business. I can't do both. I'll let them know. I don't see why not. It don't cost that much to go down to the courthouse Oh, I see. So it's really just the legal record. And as BOA once said, and Pastor Dowell said, if they insist on bringing the government, bringing the state into your marriage, they ain't the right one anyway. They should know morally why that's not a good idea. And there are men who have daughters, and then all of a sudden they look at their daughters, and all of a sudden they're like, yes, he gonna marry her in front of the state. He gonna put himself in a position where she can take advantage of him, and that's out. And if he's a real man, that's what he gonna do, and he's gonna be okay with it. That's not how we do that. Not if you're consistent. Man, I look at his son and be like, yeah, son, don't marry in front of the state. Man, I turn around and look at his daughter and be like, if that man won't marry you in front of the state, how they gonna get, how's that gonna work? Because you see, the difference between the men and the women of the society is not the difference between what the man's parents taught him and the woman's parents taught her when they, that's not the difference. The difference is between what a single pair of parents teaches their son versus what they teach his sister, their daughter. That's where the differences lie. And we're in a society that excuses hypermaterialism in these broads, excuses childish behavior in adult women, excuses double standards that ladies have, excuses irrationality in them, and then turns around and tells men to not only be very rational and very logical, but to accept irration and illogic when it's inconvenient for them and don't make no mother cuss word sense and don't do nothing but compress them from two sides against the middle and burn their candles at both ends. Then they should accept it. Oh, you don't get to sit up here and say that you want a lady to look the part, not according to every man's taste, just yours, but to look the part and behave like an adult woman. You don't get to have both. Make up your damn mind. Which one you want? Even Sinbad was joking about that, how just go ahead and get an ugly woman because she'll know how to behave. What? I'm going to the moon this weekend. I'll be back. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that, and this is back then, if she was that busted up, you could probably say stuff like that. Now, if she's busted looking, she ain't gonna tolerate no mistreatment like that, which is understandable. But if she's busted looking, she demands to be treated like she's a 12 out of 10. Shout out to Shaka Nulu. He had a quick clip video. Just SYSBM it, black man, or something like that. He was using SYSBM as a verb, and it's these two big old white women's, two big old white land whales being interviewed on a screet. Yes, screet, SKREET, exclamation mark. So, the interviewer asked them, "What is your biggest ick?" And the biggest one says, "Guys that don't work out." I mean, how you gonna pick me up? Bitch, a silverback gorilla can't pick your ass up. I'm sorry, pick your asses up. You weigh more than a silverback. He can probably kick your ass, but he can't pick you up. And then the woman next to her, what's your turn? What's your biggest ick? White men, because they ain't gonna tolerate half of her, let alone all of her. They're gonna look at her and be like, God damn, put the chicken down. Put the chicken wing down. It's fried. I will grill you some chicken wings. Put the fried one down. F out of here. Sick of this, man. I'm sick of you guys having to deal with stuff like this, and I really am. But I'm letting y'all know. I mean, it's not right, but I'm letting you guys know, man. That fornication is going to cost you. And what they want to do is trap you in the West where you cannot leave. That's one of the reasons why they like doing the stuff they do. They want to trap you in the West. That's what they're looking to do. They're looking to trap you in the West. trap you where you're treated badly, and then when they've succeeded in terraforming traditional areas into misandric Western nations, then they're going to turn around and say, we don't care where you go. It's going to be the same no matter where you land. That's what they're looking for. Some of them even said it. Some of them said, man, you have no choice. You're going to have to deal with us the same way no matter where you go because we are spreading this. It was a white chick said this. Normally, white women get upset when black women talk their points because white feminists and misandrists will have certain points and agendas that they want to push, anti-natalism, as an example. And they get upset because when sisters get a hold of these ideas, sisters will turn around and start taking these same ideas, aiming them directly at specifically black men, and then they start talking about it like, yeah, we're going to do this, that, and the other. We're going to call the cops on you. Get them to shoot you niggas. We're going to abort black boy babies if we find out we conceived a male. We don't believe in having no black nigger males. They'll sit up and say this loudly and proudly, and then the white women are like, God damn it, they blowing up this shit. They're telling on us. That's why I didn't start this with the peace greeting. They telling on us. They confessing everything. Sick of this. You can't tell Keisha anything. Damn it, Sapphire's out there rolling her neck, snapping her fingers and raising her voice again. And she's over there telling Ty what the hell that she's telling him what we're going to do. She didn't mention us yet. She didn't say anything about us yet. Wait, now she's talking about what our man does for us. Didn't we tell her that our man isn't shit? Didn't we tell her that white guys are nothing and they don't deserve to breed and they shouldn't even get any, they should never get any at all? Didn't we just get through telling her that? That they're not really men? And now she's sitting up here telling her man the same thing about him. Oh my God. They're trying to terraform that. See, what happened to Breet Fairley is something they want to happen to all of you unless it's something worse. They want you to have to, they want you, from the time that you are a little boy and you reach puberty, they want you to know that you are going to have to pick a poison. And if you become too comfortable with the poison, if the generation of boys that are born into this become too comfortable and they're just used to it now, you just pick one, it's no big deal, then the women are going to sit up and say, well, obviously the poisons we've given them aren't enough. They're making choices and counting it as normal. We're going to have to step it up, make it worse. And eventually there will be born generations of women who will hate men and they won't even know why they do. You'll ask them, why is it? And they won't even know why. It's sort of like white racists today. You ask them, why is it that you hate black folks? And they don't really have a good solid reason as to why it is that they do. I don't even know why. It's not even really them. You can ask other races that have been oppressed by massa themselves. What is it that you got against black folk? Why do you believe in liberation for yourself, but not for black folk? And they don't know why. That's what these women are going to be like after a while, after generations, if we don't check this stuff. How do you do it? Well, simply put, you're going to have to reverse the tide, like I said, by doing exactly what I've been saying to do, which a lot of you don't want to do. Go ahead and travel, but take your male chastity with you. And before you even try to chase any trim at all, you tell the men there what the work is going on. Here's why. A lot of you guys are getting scammed, especially in places like Pattaya. You're getting scammed by the same women. How many brothers has Nan been with in Pattaya? How many guys have their own camera footage of her? I don't necessarily mean always explicit, but how many of them have their own camera footage of her from their own cameras and their own phones that either photograph or video? How many of them? Flight Madness walked by her. She hugged him. He didn't know her. And he found out later on and she was just out there, she was digging out. I mean, she was getting dug out by one and the other and the other. This is happening in Pattaya. Been going on. And since this is what's going on there, and you guys know that that's what's happening nowadays, and it's getting talked about and getting exposed, and everybody's beginning to realize this. Now that this is what's going on and known to be what's going on, the question becomes to you guys, how do you fix it? So Sue is gone. Bogota's gone. What's the other? Medellin? Yeah, Medellin's gone. Rio's gone. You go there to get scoped now at this point. You go there to get drugged and robbed. That's why you go there. So you got all of this stuff happening there in these places. And now it's Pattaya. And some guys have even said that when you go to any sizable city in the Philippines, the single moms out there are very entitled. Talk about how many blessings they got. Bitch, if I bonded with your kids, you don't call them blessings just to get me to take care of them. That's if I have a bond with them. You don't get to do that. F out of here. Let me bring all my kids over here and see how you like raising them. I better pay for your kids' schools. Okay, yeah, you better cook for my kids. You better do it. F out of here. So, since these places are falling, then what is it that you got to do instead of landing there and then trying to get up in some trim? You need to land there and then tell the men, form some friendships, some buddies with the local men, and let them know for the workers coming down the pike. Here's why: because they are in positions to introduce you to women that ain't gonna do that shuck fit, and then those women get the rewards and not um the loose nans out there. That's why. See, there's a time, all that booty shaking and even copulating has a time and a place for it. There are times and places for all that stuff. The context is a marriage. Even if it's done according to your faith tradition, that's what the context is. The places are in your home and wherever the hell else you can afford to travel to. That's what that's about. Go on ahead. But understand that in order to be able to select the best, your best bet is to do exactly what it is that people think is corny to do and not good to do and not why, or they just think it's corny to do. What do we think it's corny to do? Travel somewhere, not chase some trim, not try to get up in some, and then make friends with some of the dudes there and trade notes with them. That sounds corny to you. Man, if you ain't ready to have trips like that, then understand that you are doing what the feminists want you to do in one way, but not in another. You're finding better options. They don't want that. But you're putting the bad women over there in a position to be rewarded for being bad. And that's what it is these broads want. They're looking at you like, oh yeah, absolutely. The bad woman over there are going to be like, well, he's chasing trim. So, and I'm selling it. So here's what I'm going to do. And then they start telling other women, girl, look, you up here trying to run a business and it's struggling. I'm screwing. I'm selling some, and I might not like everything I'm doing, and I damn sure don't like everybody I'm doing it with, but I'm not spending money. I'm not struggling trying to figure out how I'm going to meet these minimum costs over here to make more money. I'm not doing that. I'm not worried about rent. I ain't worried about electricity. I'm not worried about merchandise. If I decide I want to buy some body parts to do even better, then I try to negotiate with one of the tricks, and um, then I buy the body parts and I'm recovering, and then now I'm off to the next guy. I can buy a booty and then use that to get more money and then buy a chest and use both of them to get even more money later on. Now they don't know to tell the shop owner lady, listen, um, this ain't gonna last long, and there's gonna come a day when your shop's making money, and I'm not, and I'm gonna have to come to you for money. And if you join me in this, you and I gonna be looking for a lady that owns a shop trying to ask her for money because we gonna age out of this. They don't really know to say that. But in the beginning, when both of them are young and one's trying to run a business and she ain't trying to rack up a body count, and the other one is racking up a body count so she won't have to run a business. That's what she's telling her. And that looks, I mean, women that would have made smarter choices now won't make them. Because you chasing trim participated in making the unwise choice look like the smarter choice. Because you out there chasing trim. And what does that involve? Flashing some money. Even if you ain't got to flash it, you still got to pay it. And you're paying it not for any particular skill. You got money, you got power. If that's the case, you could have gone there and you could have been the mechanism collectively that rewarded the good behavior. And that's not what you did. Not many of you. And one thing I do like about where I live is that this is a good place to come and visit and learn some new stuff, good and bad alike, but to learn it. And I mean, my Dr. Blees or my Professor Blees series on Jet Black Air Lounge has that. Hell, about 3 hours after right now, I'm about to go and walk in and give the last two components of their final exam. The speaking and the writing. That's what's going to wind up happening. And I'm telling you guys right off the bat, I love this job, but this ain't the place to come here chasing trim. Hell, every year the women are doing more and more and more to get attention from men. This ain't the place where you come and you chase trim. But the thing is that here, a chick could be trying to get attention from men. She could be trying to get attention from men, never get it. Later on, if she decides, you know what, I'm not walking that path anymore. I'm going to walk the straight and narrow. Then she could do that because she ain't coming in with this high ass body count. She may be coming in with no body count. It depends on how determined she was when she was an attention seeker. Most of them aren't going out of their way to get a dingling. They're going out of their way to get attention, and they ain't getting it. And then afterwards, they could decide, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. Just not doing this. Then they could, I mean, their brothers and fathers probably won't go out looking for them to find somebody. They probably won't. But what they could do is they could probably tell some man they like, look, go talk to my dad. They could do that. And if they do that and they go talk to the dad, then dad might accept him if he's a good dude. And then she gets married and she can start over. And the man is not losing because he's not body number 16 while he waited to marry. That's not what's happening here. And that's very important. So I'm looking at them and saying, okay, well, there's a hope for them, although it's very tenuous at this point. But one thing I can say is that here in Saudi, I cannot put the blame on foreign men for coming in here and ruining the market, the marriage market. I can't do that. I can't say that. Whereas when it comes down to these places that have changed and been terraformed, like Pattaya and Sosua, the cities I formerly named, I mean, the aforementioned cities, I should say. When it comes to those areas, I consider say that it was feminist women and trim chasing men that changed these environments. I can't say that about the men here. I can't do that. This ain't the place to go and do that. It's illegal trying to chase trim and you ain't gonna marry him, but it is legal to tell the men what the hell is coming into the country from the outside. That's very legal. And I try to do it. My issue is you got to tell them in local slang a lot of times. And these guys, they don't speak full sign. And not only that, but these men here, they think they know everything and they just constantly interrupt. That's their problem. That's the part that's their fault. And that's the local men's fault. That ain't the foreign men's fault. Foreign men know not to come here trying to chase trim. That ain't gonna happen. Foreign men understand that. Don't come here for that stuff. Not here. Not here. Somewhere else maybe, but you ain't gonna come here for that. So it ain't the foreign men that caused that problem. And the local men didn't intentionally cause it. They just don't know what it is. And they're hard to teach anything to. Can barely tell these niggas anything. They think because they know how to build a campfire in the desert and pitch a tent, that they know, and how to take care of camels. I'm not joking. In 2025, you got dudes here that had that mindset. And some of them have not camped out in the desert for years, but they think because they did at some point, they're real men and they know everything that there is to know. And that's it. And you can't tell them nothing. You're going to tell them about women? Yeah, I'm going to tell you about the women outside because it's about to affect the women inside. And they just keep interrupting you. You giving them fifth grade information, they keep interrupting you with second grade information like you don't know that already. And you're like, bro, I'm giving you more information than what you just said. And TikTok, very problem. Bro, I know that. I know TikTok's an issue. What I'm trying to tell you is what specifically they're going to teach you in TikTok. That's what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm trying to tell you is that they are forming a sorority. Women that don't even like each other are making agreements that they're going to lie even to you and to your dad. How? Because it could be your own sister that's willing to lie to you and to your dad. That's what I'm saying to you. They're being told to do their parts, to lie even to the men they love, the brothers and their fathers. How's that going to benefit them? Because it psychologically trains them to lie even to their sons later. That's how. And here's the other thing. Them custody laws, don't change that up. Let the men know if there's going to be a divorce, they take custody as soon as the law allows. That is a must. I'm not saying they stop the kids from visiting mom. I'm not saying that. That's not allowed anyway. But they take the custody. That is a must because for the sons and for the daughters, because what's going to happen is that the moms are not going to teach the sons the truth about women. They won't even teach the daughters the truth about men, but they're going to teach the daughters how to play men. And there are men out here there are men that drop women like a bad habit just for talking to mother cuss word much. Some of these old guys do that. They'll get married and they will divorce that chick just because she talks too damn much, or she tries to manipulate, or tries to control him, tries to trick him into stuff. He finds out, he's like, yeah, you're going home. This ain't your home no more. And kids are staying here. Next, and he goes and marries the next one if he can afford to do it. That's how you do that. These men and these women are not ugly. But these men ain't playing the older men ain't playing to a certain extent. These women know there ain't nothing they can do for these old men. They're up here plotting on how it is that they're going to deceive the middle-aged and young men. That's what they're plotting to deceive. Start with the dads, the middle-aged. The young, their own brothers. And then later on, they will tell their sons what they want their sons to believe. And the only way to get around that second part is to make sure that the fathers are the ones with the custody in the event of a divorce. And that's already allowed here anyway. And that's probably one of the things that has allowed the family structure to not get any more unstable than what it is here. Oh, there are high divorce rates here too. Don't get it twisted. And all of this was made understandable to me and obvious to me because of Breet Fairley. Breet Fairley went the route uh, of reproduction that takes everything and puts all everything in the woman's court. It puts all the shots at their call. I was the route that he went. And that's because where Breet Fairley lives, there's no other option anyway. But you guys at least understand how you must adapt and move in stealth if if you have to stay in that particular environment. At least you guys get to understand that. And it's very important. I want you guys to be, and I mean this from the bottom of my black heart, I want you guys to be safe. Hell, I want innocent women to be safe, but it's a little bit easier for them as far as I know than it is for you. You gotta to pull all kinds of stops in order to remain safe. That's where the difference comes in. When it comes down to these ladies, they don't have to do all of this stuff to remain safe. For them, the safety is damn near built in because, hell, dad and brother will protect them. What about you? You're not even deemed worthy of. You're not even deemed worthy of any kind of defense, no matter what, no matter how deceptive it is, no matter how bad and how evil and cruel the game gets. You're deemed worthy of absolutely no defense, no one to look out for your interest, nothing. You are looked at as though you just automatically deserve um, to be taken full advantage of, charged twice for one. And many of us even believe that. Many of us believe, if you don't understand women and you ain't no real man, you don't need to be with one. Well, how you gonna understand them? That's why I'm talking about right now. That's the reason why I'm right now up here mentioning to you how it is that you got these ladies, even over here, that are coming to agreements. I mean, and here's the thing, for me to sit up and tell you this means that you have conversations going on between these women on TikTok that even we don't know about. I don't know how they're doing it, but they are. How they come into these agreements that what they're going to do is they're going to first deceive the dad and their brother, even if they love them, they're going to deceive them so that they can later deceive the son, just so that the son later on does not have his rights looked after and defended at all because he doesn't know how to do it and doesn't even know he has any rights. How's that going to happen? Well, somehow they're able to come to these agreements. When it comes to manipulating you, controlling you, deceiving you, if they don't like each other, they are still willing to cooperate just to make sure that they control collectively what options you have and what options you don't have. And what I'm saying to you is that before you get ready to travel, make sure that you have thought well about how you will reward the honest ones who don't do this type of thing, and which will by default penalize the dishonest ones by leaving them in the dark, left out with nothing else, with nothing at all. That's the important thing about this. As we would say, they out here. They're active. And they're willing to set aside their beefs pretty much just to make sure that you don't have it too easy. Think about the level of hatred that has to be. Just to make sure that you have difficult experiences with them, they're going to set aside their grudges to make sure that you don't have any options. Not that you would want. Not even when what you want is mutually exclusive. No, not even then. But just when what you want involves two or more things that are good, they end up saying, nope, we don't do that. And Breet Fairley had to face this. That's just one example. Breet Fairley is a lesson to us. What this chick did and what the courts did and did not enforce is an example of what the society wants to do to you and to me, and then to turn around and tell other societies to do to their men too. That's what I'm getting at. That's what it's taken me 50 minutes to sit up here and try to explain. I'm sorry about that length of time, but there's a reason this flight lasts as long as it does. Tory Lanez what happened to him represents exactly what they want to be in store for all of us, no matter where we land. That's the whole point. What happened to Jonathan Majors is what they want to be in store for all of us. And how many sisters were glad that he went through that, even though they set up and said that he had slave features? I remember that. I'll never forget that. He got slave features, girls. But, he's with Grace Jabari, and they're not mad about the fact that he was with another Western chick, another Westernisha, like they should have been. They're mad because she wasn't black. Cute enough. But they're mad about that. So they want to. Anyway, the point is they want to make sure that Brian Banks' story becomes the norm, that Jonathan Major's story becomes the norm, that Breet Fairley's story becomes the norm, the Tory Lanez story becomes the norm. They want to make sure that we all have to pick a poison. Which one of these we're going to deal with, and just accept that that comes with dealing with them. That's what they're looking for. And the funny thing is, they're going to count it as a major victory when you got some of these young bros. They might be kids today, but they're very impressionable. When you got some of them that finally do sit up and say, because this is what they're pushing for. The women are pushing for this. Well, if you don't want to do it, you don't want to deal with us, then y'all can just deal with each other. And when they finally tell some young boy this, and these young boys grow into adult men who have taken that decision, then they're going to see that as a major victory. Now, I don't know how successful it will be. And I don't know how long it will be unsuccessful. And I don't know how successful it will be whenever it does become successful. But they're raising the boys, so there's bound to be a day of success for them. But they're going to count that as a major success because they know that we're not naturally drawn to dudes. So they will sit up and be able to say, we can even change nature. Now, the Muslims know the significance of what I just told you. You can ask them, what is the significance of what Jet Black just said? That these chicks here are going to start telling these young guys, these young boys they're raising, if you don't want to deal with us, you can just deal with each other. And that as soon as a generation comes up that starts doing this, they're going to sit up and say, see, we so powerful, we can even change nature. A Muslim who's read, who's the least bit serious, will be able to tell you. Even if all he does is pray 5 times a day and read a few verses a day as a reminder, even if that's all he does, he'll be able to tell you the significance. Breet Fairley is just one of the victims in this. And he ain't black. Why did I cover him? It's not because I care about his people's community. It's not that. It's because the war that they're facing is almost generally the same. And it's because what the women are doing in his community to their men is what the women of our community are doing to us, and the Latinas are doing to them. And every woman of every particular racial community in the West is starting with their own men to do this to. And then eventually they'll just get to the point where they'll say, we don't discriminate. And a white chick will say, I'll do the same thing to a black man. And a sister will say, I'll do the same thing to, well, I don't know how long that'll take, but that day will come. And a Latino will sit up and say, I'll do the same thing to a white or black man. I don't fib a guck. I don't care, but I'm going to do this. I'm not going to be nice, and I'm damn sure not going to behave well if I look good. No, If I got that booty and this chest and a cute face, I'm going to act a furthermucking fool, and I'm going to make this ninja pay, financially and psychologically. I've seen it. Alexander Grace has a channel, and he'll show you white chicks wilding out on their white men, ways they don't do to brothers. That's why they can get us. Because they don't do these things to us, but there's going to come a day when they'll sit up and just wild out on anybody. They don't care. You bring me that right now. Wait a minute, hold up. You mean my stuff? It's not yours, it's mine. They just wild out on brothers too. That day's coming. And Breet Fairley is just one example of this. That's all that is. That's all you're looking at, gentlemen. Nothing else. You look at that GoFundMe that Nigga the Stallions fans raised up, opened up, so they could put books on that dude Santino Cassio's. They could put money on his books at the prison in California. You look at what the F they did. These sisters don't want Tory Lanez punished. They want him silenced. That's what they're doing. That's what these sisters are looking for. They're going to sit up here and reward a man from another community for an act of violence against a man from their own. Talking about, we don't like it when you black men be race traitors against us, and they just did what's considered race treachery, the same race treachery they can't further mucking stand. They just did the same goddamn further mucking thing. And the others that ain't participating in it ain't said nothing against them. We're talking about in the black manosphere, but the women that don't agree with it ain't said nothing. And may not have the time to, because they don't have the same length of time, the same amounts of free time. They got to work. Because they're not out here taking booty picture shots and posting them up on Instagram and whatever other platforms trying to get some money just for showing themselves in a bikini. Man, it's bad. It's bad out here, bro. And that's what they want the globe to be. And you're just going to have to change the program if you want to stop this. If you don't want every dude to wind up like Breet Fairley or Brian Banks or Jonathan Majors or Tory Lanez or the countless other men like them that are not celebrities, whose names are not out there that we don't all know, but you know them personally, then we're just going to have to change the program. We do not land somewhere and immediately get to chasing trim. We don't do that. We land somewhere. And we actually learn what it's like for them to live there. And we make friends with the local men, and we tell them this is what is coming down the pike. We say to them, I'm here to start a family under the right terms, the right way. But I'm letting you guys know what the hell's coming down the pike, because your sisters, your daughters, your moms, and your aunts too, your wives are watching TikTok, and they're falling under psychological pressure to become feminist misandrists who hate men, who hate youth, and who make men pay for sins that previous generations of men did not commit. Oh, yeah. Stuff that white men of generations ago in Europe and in North America actually did commit and did not commit are sins for which they want to make you and me today over here in the tropics pay. Yeah, they want to crucify us for the sins of the guilty and the sins that were never committed. And these social media platforms are the way. And this is why it is that if you want, you got it. They're going to ask, well, what do we do to stop that? And this is what we say to them. Any woman that you take care of, you set terms for. Just like if you take care of a young man, you take care of a young boy, he has to follow your rules because you're taking care of him. He's under your rules, your roof, your house. He's eating your food. He's using your electricity you paid for. If that's the case, fine. This is what we say to the young women we're taking care of, whether it's the daughter or the sister. Hell, if your mama's living with you, she lives under your rules. And what are these rules? If you have a TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram account, hell, if you got any social media account, and I find out that you had one that you didn't tell me about so that I could watch and see how you're doing, you're going to take care of yourself. You're going to get your ass out there and get a job and get your own place to live because it ain't going to be under my roof. If you tell me about this account, you tell me about it. Then you did what I asked you to do, and you don't do any slutty stuff, and you don't preach feminism and misandry against men. These are my terms. But I find out that you had an account and you didn't tell me about it, then that means you were either being sexually immoral or you were just preaching misandry and feminism. You are preaching against men. Those are the two things I'm going to assume. Why the hell else would you not want me to know about it? If you find some guy you like and you want to communicate with this guy, you don't set up an account that I don't know about. What you do is you let me know that you met the man early on, and then I will vet him. Because I want you to find somebody to be happy with if he's actually a good guy. This is real simple to tell these men. But we're not focused on that enough. Too many brothers landed in Pattaya and were like, where the trim at? Trying to stick it in something. Trying to play catch up from the time they lived in the West. You can't do that. You cannot fornicate women. It's like women trying to out-earn men in the same job. How you going to, with the same job, same pay, the only difference being the hours you can work, how you going to out-earn the man? You going to call in sick for that man, dude. F out of here. So next thing, no, instead of that, you land and you say to these gentlemen, listen, you form friendships and you let them know they're going to ask you early on what brought you here. You could just say, here you can earn your living, you can raise your family in a clean manner. So far, it's still that way. What do you mean so far? Well, bruh, and then you tell them the feminists and misandrists back where I'm from have a mission, and their mission is to spread that to places like here. And when you say that, the dudes are going to lean in and start asking you questions anyway. Then you can tell them what they need to know. You ain't even got to preach to them. You could just let them know that you're there for this particular reason. You know how I tell people about the racism in the U.S.? They simply ask me, well, what brought you to Saudi? I say, I came here for a job and for the safety. Safety? Well, what's the danger in the States? Well, there's discrimination against black folk and discrimination against Muslims. Over here, neither one. Just discrimination when it comes to marriage. And I can do the same thing. White guys can't marry my daughters. Okay, stay away. Stay out the house. I'm not trying to marry your daughters. Don't try to marry mine. Okay, we're even. But when it comes to work, we're equal. And I'm not going to be discriminated against for being Muslim and praying at the right times, at the prayer time. So, okay, cool. I came here for this and I'm safe here. I follow the rules. I'm safe. I can't say that in the States. It's a gamble. Not so much a gamble here. Biggest danger here is the traffic. And hey, you the one driving. You the Uber driving. I'm in here buckled up in the passenger seat. You know the traffic and the patterns and everything. We good. See, at that point, they start asking about the States and you just tell them. This is what's coming down the pike. Now, I can't really get to telling them what's coming down the pike in terms of the feminism and the misandry because, like I said, they just get so excited they can't fuck the shuck up and let you finish a sentence. After all, the Arabs. And we had the same problem too. But, I let them know a little bit at least. Plant the seeds. Hopefully, they'll start looking at their sisters and their moms and realizing certain things and start saying, you know what? I'm going to have to go through her phone. Sis, come here for a second. I need to see your phone. Don't be smart. Unlock the damn thing. Watch her sweat. Wait, what you sweating for? Okay, you know what? That passenger of mine was right. You know what? That bald-headed English teacher was right. You know what? That dude that cussed out the racist, that dude was right. What is she up to? Why do you need to see my phone? You got a phone. I need to see yours. Hand it over and unlock it. But close your mother cuss word mouth and do what I said. Every time I'm in class studying, you call me up. Class let out early. Take me home. You can't wait. I carry you here. I carry you there. I take you wherever you need to go. I'm up here looking out for you like a brother does for a sister. And you're going to turn around and tell me I can't use your phone for a second. Put the damn thing in my hand unlocked. No. Gotcha. Okay. Now I know what's up. Dad. See, that even though I can't tell them everything, what I can tell them is little bits and pieces. So if I'm having that kind of trouble telling them that here, but it does seep in slowly, just not fast enough, not quickly enough. What the hell you think is going to happen when you're in an environment in which the men are just academically and intellectually better suited to learn stuff they didn't know before? What do you think is going to happen? They're going to learn. You're going to tell them and they're going to learn. They're going to figure it out. They're going to learn it from you right off the bat. They're going to immediately go home and they're probably going to have smarter ways to get into their sisters or their moms or their nieces or their daughters' phones and say, what's happening here? They're going to have they're going to have a much better way of going about finding it out. And eventually they're going to start sitting down and they're going to start telling their sisters and their daughters. And even, well, they probably shouldn't have to tell their moms, but they might. But they're going to sit down and tell their sisters and their daughters. Sweetheart, if you do X, Y, and Z, there will be no way I can find a husband for you. If you sent me to go out there and look for a husband for you, I wouldn't be able to find him for you if he knows you did X, Y, and Z. If you have a problem with men, if men angry, if you don't like men, or something like that happens, and the men find out this is your attitude, no matter what another man did to you, when a man finds out that he's got to pay for what some other dude did, it's over. Nothing I can do for you. I can't find a husband for you if he knows that's what's coming down the pipe. And I'm not allowed to hide that from him if I know. You are not going to get what it is that you think you're going to get if you go down the path of these Western feminist misandrists. They'll know how to tell them this. And what this means is that it won't just be a market where you can go and you decide you're going to find you a wife and that's it and that's all you're doing and then never mind. No, this will see to it that when you have your children, your daughters will be able to find good husbands because they won't be bad. They won't be a bad pool of women themselves, and your sons will be able to find wives because they won't be fooled and tricked. The stability will be back. It will be maintained, I should say. In actuality, one of the only ways to reverse this trend of misandry that is spreading is to get a good, solid footing somewhere where it is not shaky ground anyway, then to push back. Where do you push back? You push back from locations in which it is not accepted yet. You push back from ground that they have not yet gained, and then you turn around and reverse it and push them back into the nothingness. That's what you do. You guys are sitting up here, and by chasing the trend, you are reinforcing certain things that are already in tradition that are not good. I've already told you, everything traditional ain't always good. It's better than what the West has in general as a whole, but not everything traditional is always good. I told you that. You chasing the trim is not even going to be good. You chasing marriage is not. You got to pay. Why the hell should you go and chase down a marriage? People say that's traditional. I don't feel a guck. Is that fair to you? And if the woman don't want you, that ain't fair to her. Why are you chasing her? She don't want you. If the dad doesn't want you to be married to her, he's not going to treat you well. Why are you trying to chase his approval? Just be like, you know what, Dad? Best of luck finding what you're looking for. Because I can tell you, you should know this as a man. What interest does any man have in being this and that when these two are mutually exclusive and go against each other? And you sitting up here saying a man's got to master them both. What interest does a man have in doing that? For what? You want me to be young and wealthy at the same time? Without inheriting anything. That's what you're looking for. Okay, well, if I had that, what interest would I have in staying in this little funky ass town? No, I'm not insulting your country. I'm talking about this little funky ass town. What interest would I have in staying here if that's the case? Got all this money. I don't need to stay here. I could go stay somewhere closer to the capital city. No, I'm right here in this town. With you. I'm the one that is available to get married to her. And she's a good lady. You're screwing that up. Do you find something wrong with me for her? That's the question we need to look at. Not for you, but for her. If you don't understand these things, then you don't need to go anywhere. Because you have to understand what it is that you will reward and what you will incentivize versus what you will not reward, what you will penalize, and what you will de-incentivize. You need to understand that. You chasing trim, you are going to incentivize selling some. Especially if you sit up and pay for some trim more than you would pay for a meal. So what you're really saying is this trim right now is more important than food and water. You're going to sound like the booty warrior. Except you're not about that booty. You don't sound like the trim warrior. Is that what you want to say? Is that what you want to do? You want to sit up here and teach them to negotiate that? amongst several men, well, you incentivize that. So a woman that might have started up a business and not going that route, when she falls on hard times, will say, well, dang, I mean, at least while I'm young, I'll never have these hard times. So let me go ahead and go this other route now, because that's what the men are paying. Instead of the men coming into my shop to buy my food or my drinks or my water, they're going over there to buy some trim. I'm in the wrong business. She might have never made that decision. But it was always profitable, at least while she was young. And some would say, yeah, but when she gets older, and that's true, but Ninja, she ain't old right now. And human beings, men and women alike, have to think about both the present and the future. We must think about both. We have to think about the past in order to learn from it. That doesn't matter your gender or your age. You better think about all three of them. You don't have an option except to be stupid. The only other choice is to be a dumbass. So go on ahead, gentlemen. Go on ahead. Take a look at what happened with Breet Fairley. All the laws that she broke. The one for which he was arrested when all he did was protect his own rights and understand not only his particular case, but understand that this is what the hell they want everywhere. That's why in France, you don't get paternity testing without the woman's permission or the court order. That's why they do that in France. It's hard to get it. Well, in France, it's easy. Go to the men and say, hey, ask for a paternity test. How many times do the women agree to a paternity test? That's the number of times that these women are actually having children for the men they're telling that they are the father. Got it? That's how many times. You really want to know, what are the rates of paternity fraud and paternity discrepancy? Or no, paternity fraud, because that means that she knew. She knew about it. She wasn't mistaken as to who was the dad. She knew who was not the dad. So that's what you do. Go there. Can anybody find out, if you live in France or you have access to French lawyers, see if you can find out, hey, what is the percentage of women in these paternity suits, or child support suits in France, that actually agreed to a paternity test to prove that he's the dad? What's the percentage? And then what are the percentages of those in which the named dad comes back the biological father? That's going to give you an accurate estimate. And you can take that and apply it to every other country that's very similar in their outlook. What that means is that in Holland, next door, all these other nations next door, what that means is that that means exactly that. That means that the same percentage of women are lying about who the dad is. And France is just going to go up because they're allowed to lie. And then turn around and say, no, you're not allowed to prove that I'm lying. That's all. So that number's going to go up. But right now, while it's still new, you can find out. We already know what it is in Botswana. Shout out to BGS. That blew my mother cuss word mind. I saw a clip where a chick in Ghana on some it was either a podcast or a TV interview, but she was sitting up with a host in Ghana telling the man that most of these guys were raising kids that weren't theirs. Fadawak not. It's Ghana. They don't give a rat's ass, especially in the South. That's part of why it is that a lot of black men who like black women still won't go to Africa. Because something in us said, she going to sit up and say she got this from Africa. And the women in Africa are going to sit up and say, yeah, we did that. Because it's in their best interest. It tells you, in a nutshell, that the secret that most women in the world are hiding, the secret they're hiding, is that they really, in their heart of hearts, feel that most men should not reproduce. But they should be responsible for taking care of the children conceived. That paternity fraud is exactly what most men deserve by virtue of the DNA they don't have. The genes they don't have for height, muscle, chiseled jawlines, all this other stuff. Then deep down in their heart of hearts, that's what they feel. That's the dark secret they're trying to keep from us. That's why it is that your man's C Boogie, you know what I'm saying, the Boogie Meister, set up and said that if the mask falls off, cities will burn down. I said a long time ago, that means you should be asking C Boogie for the workers under the mask that will make us burn cities down. What's under that mask? Now, we know what they're presenting. We know what the mask looks like. What's under the mask? And how do they get the mask to fit both their face with the outside appearance being altered. See, for a mask to really work, a truly prosthetic mask, it has to fit the actual face. That's what people don't realize. For it to move along with your natural face and facial expressions, the mask must fit your natural face on the inside and present a different one on the outside. That's what it takes. And see, I was like, you know what? That means they really went through a lot of trouble to put these masks on. To make the mask, to construct the mask, they went through a hell of a lot of problems. And you sit up and saying they can't take it off. Sounds to me like they shouldn't have been able to make them. But what is under that mask? What is under that mask is the temptation to commit paternity fraud against you, me, and these other guys simply because of the genes we don't have. If they could, they would go to the gym bros, bang them out, tell them not to pull out. That's what they would do. And then turn around and knowingly conceive, and then turn around and bring the babies home to the provider husbands. And tell the provider husbands exactly what they say in France. I'm not agreeing to a DNA test. You are stuck taking care of this baby. You don't even have to see him. Just pay. That's what they would do. If you give them free reign, that's exactly what the work they will do anywhere. That's why in China they talk the same way that they talk in the West. Well, if you already bonded with the child, isn't the child yours? Bitch, that don't change biology. And you knew that when you were fucking the other man. That's why you did it. You didn't just sleep with the other man because you had a moment of weakness and he just happened to be there. No, you planned that. You slept with that other man because you said he's a superior man to my husband, but my husband's the one that would commit to me. That's what you said, consciously or subconsciously. And Breet Fairley is a litmus test that shows us that if you give them free reign in any society, this is coming down the pike. And that's one of the dangers of democracy, if you're just going to simply count votes by a majority. See, in the U.S., which became the world's example of a representative democracy or a democratic republic, the U.S. had to reach a 3/5 compromise, where in the Senate, each state had an equal vote, and then in the Congress and the House of Representatives, the states had, or the populations had equal votes. They had to do this. I had to. Bicameral legislation for a particular reason. But see, you think about it, this was pretty much big states versus small states, free states versus slave states, densely populated states versus loosely, sparsely populated states. While on the other hand, the states could have an equal say. That was not a bad idea for the time being. But what I'm telling you guys is that we're now going to have some things go through different committees. Okay, this must go through a male committee. And then it must pass through a female committee. And for legislation to be passed, once that becomes a requirement, which will be needed to protect men's interest and women's long-term, but not short-term interest, once that requirement were to become a reality, if it did, you would see right off the mother cuss word bat, no legislation would be passed because the women would simply try to block everything that helps us, even if it helps them, and they would try to pass everything that helps them as long as it also hurts us. Because what they would try to do, if they could, you take any group of women, and Muslim women are proving this true about themselves too, unless they're seriously practicing. Now that's different. And they're not usually out in the public in everyone's face like that. But if you outside of that, you take most of them and you give them this sort of political power. And what is it that they're going to shoot for first? I want the right to have children with whoever I have children with and stick the bill on whatever man I want to stick the bill on. And the child not have to go through poverty because of my choices. That's what they would all say. I want to screw the guy that's at the gym all the time. I want to bone him. I want him to shag me. I want him to not pull out. That's what I want. But he's always at the gym. You can't make money at a gym. So the next thing I want is somebody to come along and provide. And that's not him. So I want to stick that on the man that has the provisions. That's it. They probably wouldn't even think much more about anything beyond that except free makeup. It's probably it, just some free makeup. Maybe some free cosmetic surgery for which the men would have to pay too. Yeah. I don't like my boobs. I want them bigger and charge him for them. That type of thing. Make the husband pay so that they could go to the gym and get the guy that's lifting the weights. That's what they would resort to if you give them free political reign. That's what they're going to resort to. Dudes ain't sitting up here saying, listen, I should be able to have outside kids and not take care of them. Dudes don't say that this is one of their rights. It may happen that way sometimes with some dudes, but they don't sit up and say that this is one of their rights. I have a right to have outside kids and not take care of them. What dude is sitting up and saying, what dude is trying to demand the right to do that? The only time dudes balk against that is usually when the conception wasn't supposed to happen. Now, that was stupid on their part, but they're not usually saying that I have a right to skeet up in all these broads and then just bounce and leave because I want to, or because I don't want to take care of them. I just wanted to bust a free nut. What dude is sitting up and saying that? These ladies are sitting up and saying, I have the right to cheat on my husband, conceive a baby with the boyfriend, and then bring the baby to the husband for him to raise, and he should be stuck raising the baby. Not really giving input into how the baby should turn out. That's my job, but he should have to pay and provide. That's what they're saying. They're sitting up and saying, I have a right to have my city girl lifestyle subsidized by the guys I don't want to screw. And I only screw because I married them. And I probably, if I could marry them without screwing them, I'd do that. Chris Fairley saw that side. That's the nature he saw. That lady was sitting up like, okay, well, I guess you can provide, but I don't want to have yours. So, what does she do? She goes ahead and gets inseminated by a married man, but wants Chris Fairley to pay. That's the major secret that most of them are hiding, even in traditional societies in which they may not act that out. And they probably don't. In traditional societies in which they may not act that out, that's still the secret they're hiding. It's that temptation. I'm telling you that the women I love in my family may struggle with that temptation themselves. Now, if they don't act it out, I'm not punishing them for it. Let one of them mess around, try to do that. Let them try to do that. Let me find out my dad ain't really my dad. That's not a secret I would hide from him. Let me find that out. Boy, that would change things between my mom and me. Now, I've seen pretty good evidence that he's in fact my dad. I've seen that. But yeah, I can look at the hands and tell. The way that your hands age, mine age identical to the way his hands have aged. Identical. But let me find that out. Let me find out that, and he ain't the one I'd had a grudge with either. Let me find out that my daughter's tried to do that to a son-in-law. I said, if I don't like the son-in-law, I'd be like, well, okay, sweetheart, if I don't particularly like this dude, fine, but why did you do that? What the hell did he do that was so bad that he deserved this? What was he doing? Was he cheating on you and you found out? Was he beating you or something like that? If that was the case, why didn't you just leave the dude or just never marry him in the first place? Hell, you could have sidestepped all of this by asking me to pick somebody. But damn. Let me find this out. Let me find out that they did that. It wouldn't be the temptation for which I would whoop that ass. It would be the obedience to it. The difference is that women want you to feel bad because of a temptation you may feel, and then you say, man, that junk wrong. And after a while, you don't even feel it no more. You don't want to do it no more. They want to blame you for that, shame you for that, and the rest of your whole mother cuss word life. Nail you to a cross for something you thought about and didn't do. What's the reason for that? Because in their minds, you did it. Because if they get tempted to do something long enough, they do it. That's what the reasoning is behind that. Projection is one of the major premises of how they defend themselves psychologically, even from their own selves, let alone from you. Mostly from themselves because they're the ones who know their own secrets. We don't know them. In traditional societies and in the West, we don't necessarily know their secrets. That's why I call them secrets. But this is the major secret that there is. That's the major one. When I look at these women and I'm like, what the hell are you so ashamed of sometimes? You know, the way that some traditional women act shy and things like that. They may actually be shy because of lack of experience. That I understand. But sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, you were married. What are you shy about? Wait a minute, you were, uh, okay, hold up. You used to live in the West. What the F are you shy about right now? Wait a minute, you're shy with your husband like he's not your husband. What are you shy about with him? You're hiding something. That's what I want to know. What the hell are you hiding? And it's one of the reasons why I respect personal privacy, but I don't respect specifically women's privacy. That no, I don't. I respect personal privacy. I don't think that women should be allowed to lie about their age. Ain't that big a deal to me. But I think lying about your age should be a felony from I'd say from 12 on up. From 12 on up, you lied about your age. No, you gonna sit behind bars too. Whether it was to get into a club or whether it was to get a dude to smash. You think about it. These chicks will tell a man a lie to get a dude to smash because she's underage. Why do they do that? Because it's illegal. They're not going to do that's making an effort. Lying is making an effort. They're not willing to make an effort to get dudes to smash unless there's a serious penalty for the guy. Then all of a sudden they'll tell all kind of lies. Yeah, I was born in 1986. Bitch was born in 2006. No, I'm sorry, 2016. She'll tell a 30-year lie about her age if that's what it takes, just to get you in trouble. A lot of these chicks that have husbands don't even sit up and say, I'm not married. Oh, actually, I take that back. A lot of them will sit up and say that they're not married. They may do that. That's if they just have to do it to get the ding-a-ling they just have to get. But, you know, and if for a lot of times they'll be like, well, okay, I'm married. We're going through a divorce. He been moved on. I've been moved on. So then they'll do that. But you think about it, making an effort to get a ding-a-ling. No, they make effort to get in the right place to get the right kind of attention. They don't make efforts to actually get the ding-a-ling. Like they don't. Hey, listen, what you doing Saturday? Saturday. What time you talking about? 4? Um, no, my plans are over by that time. No, I'm done at 2 on Saturday. Okay, listen, you look good. I ain't had none in a while. They're not going to sit up and make that kind of effort. Tell a man, uh, unless they know he just, he been with a bunch of other women. They're not going to sit up and make an effort. If this feels like an effort to them, they won't do it. Now, if it doesn't feel like one, they'll do that. But that's the difference. Whatever feels like an effort to a woman, they're not going to do and expend to try to get a man. And that's where the problem comes in because we haven't made them do that. And that's if you're talking about a traditional society. That's why this woman, Maria, took Chris Fairley for granted. What effort has she had to make when it comes to men in her life? None. She doesn't even have to tell the truth if that's what takes the effort. For some women, telling the truth is the effort. For others, lying is the effort. Whichever one feels like it is the one they won't do because they simply refuse to value men. Traditional women refuse to value men to a certain extent in a certain context. They'll value a husband a bit more than Western niches. But even then, they have a certain limit to how much they'll value the husband. You know how I know? A young man could say to his mom and his dad, okay, I've succeeded in life. I'm ready to get married. They go look for him. A young woman could be like, okay, I finished my studies. I'm ready to get married. They don't go look. No, she doesn't say that to them. That's the problem. Even over here, these dudes are like, no, man got to come and knock on our door, talk to me and my dad. And I'm sitting up and saying, okay, cool, fair, fine and dandy. What the hell is it that y'all going to offer this man to do that? Because he has to take care of your sister the rest of their life together. Why would he chase a bill down? And why would you do that? You're going to chase down a bill. These men have accepted that men should simply just not be that appreciated, that these men should not be that desired. That's what they've accepted. But every woman out here fornicating is somebody's sister. Somebody's daughter. If this will happen to Chris Fairley, what the hell you think sisters are going to do to you? Keep that in mind. This made the rounds. And understand that whenever that white woman starts doing certain things to her man, the sister has to go overboard. So, what the hell do you think they now got planned for us? These women are trying to compete with Grace Jabari, in which she did to Jonathan Majors. You know, the sisters, Sapphire. They're trying to compete. They want to compete with what that lady did to Brian Banks and her mom. They want to compete with what Nigga the Stallion and Kelsey Harris did, teaming up on Tory Lanez. They want to compete. This is a competition for them because they hate you that mother cuss word much. They hate me that cuss word much. And now you got a woman that I think she's not black at all, if I'm not mistaken. Latina or white Latina, take your pick. She's not black. She did this to a white dude. Sisters are now going to be on a rampage. Even though Nigga the Stallion done already beat this woman out in terms of what she's done to damage a man, they're still competing. They're gonna look and see, well, what the hell can I do? But especially when you look at what it is that Grace Jabari did to Jonathan Majors and what this woman did to Chris Fairley, now they're really gonna step up and try to compete. Every time one of these stories breaks, you don't understand, it gets more dangerous for you because these women hear the stories. And they want to be able to do something like, because they high five each other in the hair salons about this. My own mom told me about that a long time ago. My own mom said to me, a long time ago, son, these women plot and they plan, and it is nasty. I'm shocked at what I heard. In a hair salon, it was to the point that my mom was afraid she was going to slip up, speak out, be tied down, and have her head shaved bald by these chicks because they were so ratchet. She started making arrangements with the hairdresser. Listen, I'm going to pay you extra to open up before your regular hours one Saturday a month and do my hair, because those women are too nasty. My mom started doing that. No joke. I wish I could make that up. No, she started doing that. And so I'm sitting up here now, I'm sitting up looking at what they're doing and how they how organized this thing seems to be sometimes. Where does organization come from? Some of it is just purely satanic, so they don't have to talk to each other about all of it. But some of it has to be discussed. Some of it does have to be discussed. And here's the other thing. Some of these, I understand now why men used to have this major campaign in medieval Europe going against witches and witchcraft. Now I know what the reason for that is, because a lot of the misandry is in the circles of witchcraft. Some of the most communicating going on, I would bet money, is being done in these circles of witchcraft. These women putting roots on dudes and stuff like that. I bet you money that's where the most communication comes from. And these women don't tell everybody that they into it. So they leave these things and then they go home to the husband like Shira Seven. And then they go to the hair salon and they start giving these ideas and they disseminate them. And it doesn't even take social media to get these ideas going. Social media just kind of lowers the bar as it tricks more women into making confessions that lowers the bar, so that the next time a woman hears the lady next to her in the hair salon saying, do this, do that, and the other, it sounds relatively sane and tame. And we, by being disorganized, by virtue of knowing what the wuck it is and being disorganized, are to blame for being careless. Like I said, we've been too easy. That's our problem. We keep underestimating the element of hatred, the malice as the motive. We keep underestimating that. Like, we're not paranoid enough living in the West. You can't be paranoid enough living in the West. What good news ever comes out about mating and dating or marrying in the West, and then it turns out to be true and not just a rumor? Whatever happens? Hell, look at Florida when they stopped. I think the governor and the legislature decided to end permanent alimony. I think it was Florida some years ago. I bet you marriages stopped. I'll bet you they stopped. Yeah, I bet you they did. I bet you the marriages stopped. What stopped the good news from coming down the pipe? In China, They got rid of that stuff. You know what the women did? I'm not getting married then. So it was always financial. It was always like that. It was financial. It was about the money. Screw love. Love is the man's job. Manipulating love to get money was the woman's job. That's how the Chinese women viewed it. And they're some of the main ones doing paternity fraud. Well, if the child was born to the man's wife, it's his child. Perfect excuse, if men can accept that, to go and sleep with someone else and bring that child to the husband to raise when it's not his kid. Perfect excuse to practice dual mating. What these women really want, even the innocent ones, what they want, they don't do it. And they probably lose the desire for this after a while, because that normally does happen when you make a self-disciplined decision consistently. You begin to not even want to do the other thing, the low level, low vibrational thing. But what they generally want is to practice not only dual mating, but to be able to do it openly with impunity and not even have to hide it. That's what they want. That's what they're looking for. And that's what I want you guys to understand. That's what they're going to push for. And one of the reasons why this stuff will spread so quickly in these traditional areas, it will spread quickly. One of the reasons that it will spread so mother cuss word quickly in these traditional places is real simple. It will spread in those areas because it's already tapping into something that women would like to do at a low vibrational level or at a lizard brain level. It's already tapping into that. You are going to have to tap in to the local men's aversion to something like that in order to get the local men to start to reverse this stuff and fight it. Clamp down to maintain things the way they are. That is everything. Because if not, you hear about this case happening to Breet Fairley in the States now. Keep that up. Let them keep going the way they're going, and we keep going the way we're going. And in a few years, you're going to start hearing about cases, not in China, but paternity fraud cases in China where the men lose, where the men are still held liable to pay. You're going to start hearing about that. You're going to start hearing about cases like this in Vietnam. Forget Thailand. You'll hear about it in Thailand, and the man loses. And then it's in Cambodia next, and then it's in Laos, and then it's in Vietnam. You're going to start hearing about that. Then it's in the Philippines. Then where you going to go where you can't escape the dual mating paternity fraud penalty that you would have to pay? Where will you go to escape? There will be nowhere. Latin America, no, it's your baby. France, no, it's your baby. Netherlands, it's your baby. Botswana, it's your baby. Kenya, I don't even have to finish the sentence by now, do I? It's already like that in South Africa. Look how quickly these places degenerate, and then look into what they degenerate. It's always the same when the degeneration is full and effective. It's always the same. Men owe us money, and men owe it to us to take care of kids that are not theirs. By the same few men that we all want to screw. Well, goddamn. That should tell you something. Gentlemen, it is important. If we know this, it is important that we tell the men of these societies and stop chasing trim. Tell the men of these societies what the fuck is going on. Let them know. And enlist their aid in looking for women that don't participate in this stuff so that those women can be rewarded. And then they can turn around and say to the loose women, well, look, I'm good. I'm straight over here. One ding-a-ling. No, it doesn't get boring. I know who the kid's dad is. Something happens to me, he got him because they his anyway. Something happens to him, some of his family got the kids to help me out a little bit because they're actually related to them. Okay, got it. If I do open up a business, I might have his help. I probably will. I'm not going to be homeless if I fail. I don't have to worry about what the hell's going to happen to me in 20 years when I'm older and he's old. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to think, well, how am I going to make money if that's the case? You, on the other hand, are going to age out of what you're doing. You're making money hand over fist now. You can't save it, though, because you still got to buy a booty and buy a chest to keep it up going longer. You're going to have to buy makeup to keep it up going longer. Makeup ain't cheap. Nails and hair. These men are going to start asking for more and more and more. And pretty soon it's going to cost you so much to compete in that market that you're not going to be able to actually enjoy what you make, because you got to spend all of it back into staying competitive. In 20 years, you will have nothing but a high body count. And maybe some kids, the dads of whom you don't know who they are. You want this to be the case where the women can tell the other women. And in order for that to happen, the women got to not be lying. And that's where we come in by incentivizing the right behavior and letting the men know for the work the other force is coming in. To do that, you're going to have to deprioritize chasing trim in these other places. Pattaya is gone. Mess that up. Man, I'm not saying it was passport bros specifically that did, but the publicity certainly did open it up to who did go in and messed it up later on, no matter what they were. Medellin, Sosua, Bogota, Rio, Sao Paulo, gone. South Africa, gone without any major trends associated with it in the form of passport bros or SYSBM for that matter. And SYSBM is already on this stuff about, look for families, not just trim. Let the guys know. It's let the local men know it's not really a major tenet of SYSBM, but try to start something stable in the form of a family, that is. But without any major association in between passport bros and South Africa on a stereotypical level, it's still gone. Ruined. Probably through media and more than anything else. Gone. We can't get those places back until we get a solid footing somewhere where it is not the problem, where that way of thinking is not yet being rewarded. It is still shunned. And then we go in and reinforce the mechanisms that reward the right behavior and penalize and de-incentivize the wrong behavior, so that from there that can spread. Because when it does start to spread, the spread of the right over the wrong is going to coincide with the women that chose the city girl lifestyle aging out of that, which is already beginning to happen because they're sitting up and confessing it. That is the tide that's already there, that would allow us to get, if we get a good footing, that would allow us to then reverse from that solid footing the trend of the misandry and the paternity fraud and dual mating that is spreading from place to place. Hope that what I said helps. Thank you for being patient on this hour and 45-minute long Jet Black Air flight. Thank you for flying with us here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.